Who's that coming down the track? It's a nation champion winning. Ain't nothing final in the rain. Them drums are marching crazy.
What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. Tonight, we are starting this offseason's To Hell With Everyone series with the game that we've really avoided for quite some time. Talking about the 2017 Rose Bowl.
Yeah, it never felt like it was quite, I don't know, too much time had passed, but it feels right this time around.
It does. I also, I think I've said it on the show a few times. I still sometimes have a hard time going back and watching this game.
It's stressful.
It's so stressful. We are now 8 years later. It's still difficult sometimes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we need to remind you guys about Connect Savannah's Best of Savannah. You can go vote for us once a day. We'd appreciate it. And Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, we are on Millions live. So don't forget to check us out there. And potentially, we could be starting to do some YouTube stuff live.
Okay.
If we hit the minimum number of subscribers to go live with YouTube. So, if y'all want us to do some YouTube live stuff as well, make sure you get some more folks to subscribe to us. Also, if the YouTube quality right now is not good, my computer's having an aneurysm. So
I was gonna say you're kind of laggy on my end.
yeah, no, it's pretty bad on my end too, and I don't really know what's going on. It says that there's too much. I think I'm going to try to stop the streaming and see if that works. See if that helps at all.
Okay.
All right, we're going to keep rolling and see if that helps at all because I can tell, at least on my end, that the YouTube video is going to be not good. So we'll see. Sorry for the dead air for a second, guys. I don't know why it's acting weird. But it seems like it's already a little bit better than it was. So
Yeah, there's not a delay between what I see you saying and the actual audio, so I think it's better now. At least for me.
cool, awesome. But yeah, how you been, man? What are you drinking?
I've been good. Been super busy. I just got a Diet Coke. Just got back from the gym and all that. But yeah, nothing too crazy. My oldest son has a girlfriend, so that's makes me feel super old.
Well, you
Uh,
are super old. Just
that big facts. A lot of students like to come up and tell me that I'm losing my hair, which again is true. Uh,
what you need to say is, I'm not losing it. It's just relocating.
that it is. That it is. But yeah, man. Yeah, not too much going on. I do have the hoodie from this 2017 playoff run on, and it's one of my favorite hoodies. So like I'm happy to be able to bring that out for tonight. But how about you?
Man, I'm doing good. Yesterday was my nephew's birthday party.
Right
If
on.
you can remember these throwback birthday parties, it was at a skating rink.
Hell yeah.
Um, I did not skate. I'm not doing it. I'm not put. The thing is, I'm not concerned about my ability to skate. There's way too many kids out there that are falling and knocking other people over. I'm not putting my ability to work in the hands of a 7-year-old with 3 different ring pop colors on his hand. You know what I mean? Like, big dog,
Right.
you can't even make sure your hands are clean. how are you going to make sure that I don't break my ankle?
Very true.
And then we went to the Georgia baseball game today. It was a ton of fun. One thing that I learned today, um, you for non-conference games, the entire all of Foley Field is just general admission. You can sit wherever you want to.
Oh, neat. Okay.
So we sat on the third base line for a minute, and we moved right behind home plate, and then we moved to the first base line because when we first got there, it was cold. We wanted to be in the sun, get warm, and then by like the fifth inning, it was hot, and the sixth inning took forever. So between 5 and 6, we moved to the first base line and sat in the shade for the rest of it because when you're dressed for the game to be 40 degrees and it feels like 60, it's not good.
Sure, I'm not having a good time, but at least they came through with the run rule, right?
Oh, I would still not be home if they had not gotten that run rule because I just got home like 20 minutes ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Um,
But you didn't go to the oh no, never mind. The game was in Auburn. Never mind. I
nope,
was asked about the basketball game, but yeah,
nope.
that's season's over.
I will say the new artificial surface at Foley sucks. It's awful. The batter's box is artificial surface. I don't even have sand for the batter's box. The mound, the pitcher's mound, artificial surface.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's like there is a legitimate 1 degree difference between the ball sliding on the surface and the ball bouncing one time and dying on the surface.
That's wild. Do you think they planned it that way, or is that just all artificial surface?
Man, I don't know because I had heard that with a lot of artificial surfaces now you don't have to have those little rubber beads on top.
Okay.
If you watch closely during one of these Georgia baseball games, if a pop fly hits the ground, beads come up everywhere. So I don't know if maybe they just got some cheap surface. It's not good. I don't like anything about it except the green looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like it's shiny. The lines are always going to be crisp. The paint looks better on the artificial surface.
Yeah.
But every other aspect of it, I don't like it at all.
I mean, better for TV. Maybe making you look like the serious program that we're trying to be, that I think we are at this point. So I don't know. I don't know.
Kelsey asked me why do I think they went artificial surface, and I said probably to save money to spend in other aspects. You don't have to pay grounds crew with AstroTurf. You don't have to pay irrigation costs. You don't have to pay to cover it during storms. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And I told her I think that's why they do it, so they can spend money in other facilities and recruiting and that sort of thing. But like if they would have said, "Hey guys, we need donations to the baseball program. We're gonna have to go to AstroTurf," they probably would have gotten the donations to keep the grounds crew. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
It's just annoying because I hate artificial surface. Luckily, knocking on wood, no injuries yet on it. But with the amount of digging in the players were trying to do in the batters boxes, I don't think they like it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Yeah. That takes some time to get used to.
But let's go ahead and get into this to hell with everyone here. We're going to do an in case you forgot segment at the top. I feel like we change the way we do this every time we do it until we find the right way to do it. I think we're just going to feel it when we hit it.
We do it so infrequently that what was the last time we did this? Like what, 9-10 months ago?
It was
Maybe
July of last year, yeah.
Okay, so a while ago. Again, not a math guy. That was last year. It was a while ago.
But in case you forgot, 2017 season was Kirby's second season as a head coach at any level. Big thing there because this was Kirby, second year head coach, against Lincoln Riley, first year head coach. And in the 14 playoff, that was kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
The Dogs improved from 7-5 to 11-1 of the regular season between 2016-2017, and won the SEC by avenging the only regular season loss that was an absolute blowout at Auburn that year.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like what? It was like 42 to like 17 or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Bad.
Do you remember where you were for that game?
Oh man. I was somewhere in Kennesaw, I remember, and I was listening to like we started watching it, and then it started going downhill, and then I was listening to it on the radio, and then I ended up turning it off.
We were
Very
in
frustrated.
Orlando. We ended up taking tequila shots and going to Cracker Barrel.
As one does.
Yeah, the group of friends we were with, we still do not drink tequila around each other. This,
Bad things happen.
yeah, this many years later, we just don't do it, you know. Um, but by beating Auburn in the SEC title game, Georgia won the SEC championship, and it allowed UCF to win the national championship.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Georgia, Bama, as we've said before, Georgia, Bama played for third place that year.
They did. They did. In which, we're being fair, the logic that UCF uses is really not that flawed. Undefeated team
Mhm.
beat the only team to beat the two teams that played in the national championship. Okay.
And beat them in Atlanta too. Beat them in SEC country. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I,
tough to imagine.
some people are saying UCF should have been in the national championship game over Alabama or in the playoff over Alabama. And those some people are me.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, undefeated. And the UCF complaint and national championship claim is how Cincinnati made the playoff in 2021. You
Yeah.
know, they were like, all right, we can't do this no more. We have the playoff to have one national champion and
Yeah.
not somebody else using a logical reason to claim a national title.
It's college football. We don't use logic.
There's more logic in UCF's national title claim than in half of Alabama's claims. So
There we go. Yep.
you know, I'll give it to UCF. They deserve it.
Mhm.
But this season, 2017, was absolutely not possible without the buy-in Kirby got from Nick, Sony, Lorenzo, and Davin. Almost every single big play that you can think of from this season involves one of those guys. And those guys doing what they did by coming back and playing the way they did is a testament to the culture that Mark Richt had. You know, all those guys were Mark Richt players. And then the caliber of coach that Kirby Smart is, the way that he was able to win the transition, essentially, and say, all right, guys, if you buy in, we're doing something special here. And, you know, it's proven to be that over time. But, you know, back in the day, in 2017, before the season started, nobody thought Georgia was going to do what they did, except Barrett Sallee. Still to this day, I will give him that.
Yeah, new Braves like what pregame host?
Yeah,
Barrett
Barrett Sallee. I remember in 2017, it was when I first started listening to podcasts. Barrett Sallee said he thinks Georgia's going to win the SEC and make the playoffs before the 2017 season. And still, give it to him every time we talk about it.
He's a funny follow on X and everything too. He doesn't take things too seriously. But that press conference that Kirby had with those four guys, I mean, just monumental. Like you felt like it was a huge win and a momentum builder going into this season that we into the 2017 season.
Yeah, no, and I think if you ask any of those guys, you know, given what happened, if they would do it again, I think all four of them would say they would come back for their last year, 10 times out of 10.
I mean, really, this is still, I mean, besides the national championship winning season, like this is the funnest season I think that I ever had watching Georgia football.
Yeah, because there was no expectations. Like
Yeah, there's
nobody
nothing.
expected this to happen.
This is nothing like your first time, like being like a real legitimate threat, and just kind of just bulldozing mostly everybody.
And just think in 2017, week one, first half of the first game, Jacob Eason goes down. No
Against
telling
App
when he's
State.
coming back. And all of the, like, man, maybe like 10-2 expectations we had went
Mhm.
to, man, I hope we make a bowl game. And then fast forward a few weeks, Mississippi State coming into Athens as a favorite. Dan Mullen only beat Georgia once as a head coach.
Mhm.
That once was in 2020, so it doesn't really count.
Correct. Joe
Um,
Tess on that call, the Mississippi Georgia game that year. Incredible.
and the home dogs are barking first.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, incredible season. It really is. And kind of wild top to bottom throughout all of college football because at the same time that you have Jake Fromm doing what he did, you had sophomore Jalen Hurts.
Mm, that's right.
Sophomore Jalen Hurts losing to Auburn.
Hmm.
For as much as we watch a lot of Georgia games, I remember where I was for most games from this season,
Hmm.
which I can't say that about really any year since.
Yeah.
And no, it's not because I started drinking more heavily. Um, but so we'll get into the pregame fanfare, and with this being a New Year's Six game, and specifically the Rose Bowl, there was a ton of pregame stuff. And just for reference, I watched I don't even know what channel it is from, but the guy that makes all the YouTube games into 1 hour clips.
I think it was
Um,
like highlight something or other. I can't remember what it was.
OHFSEC. Um,
Okay, that's not the one I watched, but yeah.
yeah, so this is the one where he takes most games, takes out the in between plays, takes out the commercials, takes out halftime, and you can watch a football game in about an hour. Um, for the Rose Bowl, it was an hour and 50 minutes.
I mean, there's a lot of scoring. There's a lot of stuff to be seen.
Yeah, and the pregame was really cool. Um, and the first thing I have here is at the very beginning of this clip, they had some of the pregame stuff show Baker walking into the game, which Baker had the flu that week. Walks
He did.
into the stadium holding a pretender sign because Lee Corso in the preseason called Oklahoma pretenders, right? Baker's
Hmm.
still mad about it in the playoff. But
Yeah.
I did some digging and went back into why Lee Corso and Desmond Howard, but nobody called Desmond Howard out on it.
Nobody takes death seriously. Even Lee Corso with the stroke.
That that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Lee Corso said they're pretenders because they have an extremely difficult schedule, in which they played at Ohio State, at Oklahoma State, and at Kansas State, who were all like top 10, top 15 teams at the time. They played all three of those games on the road, and their defense sucked, which
Yeah.
both
Well,
of those things were true.
and they played TCU twice. TCU was I mean not national championship worthy quite yet, but they played them twice that year. Once in the regular season and then again in the Big 12 championship.
Right. And it's one of those, like, Lee Corso had a point. The team
Yeah.
as a whole were pretenders.
Hmm. Especially with a brand new head coach because like Bob Stoops didn't he step down in like June or July?
Yeah,
Like it
like
was
it
super
was the
late.
summer, and they took
Yeah.
their young OC and said, "Hey, dude, you're the head coach now."
Dude, I remember I was at freaking like Six Flags Whitewater when I heard that news. I do remember that. That was huge. I was like, Bob Stoops retired. That's wild.
Um, but and just give a little bit of clarification on college Baker Mayfield because I feel like with the State Farm commercials and
A progressive living in the stadium.
yeah, is that progressive? Whoever it is,
Some insurance, yeah.
yeah, with like his insurance commercials and how less fiery he is in the NFL, people forget there's the same Baker Mayfield. They got suspended for the first half of a game for getting arrested and trying to run from the cops.
Great video.
Hey,
If you go back and watch it, it's hilarious.
this is the
Makes me
same,
feel way better about my athleticism. A Heisman winner got trucked like that.
yeah, and this is the same Baker Mayfield that walked on at two Power Five football teams and won the starting job at both.
Yeah.
It's the same Baker Mayfield that when he was suspended for the first half of that game and the Kansas players didn't shake his hand, he put up like 48 points in the second half.
He's like grabbing his nuts and like
Yeah.
pointing across the field. Just, I mean,
Sheer
yeah.
will and attitude is
Mhm.
why Baker Mayfield destroyed multiple Big 12 teams' hopes and dreams.
Mhm. I mean, I remember going in this game just hating him, just like most Georgia fans, just like the D lineman after the game telling him to, humble himself and whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, going back at it, like College Baker was awesome,
God, he
but just
was
because he was the
awful.
enemy, just because he was the enemy, I hated him. But
Yeah.
looking back, retrospect, love Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and not to mention, this game was played after he won the Heisman.
Yeah.
So like he won 86% of the Heisman vote.
Mhm.
He broke a college record of being the only quarterback in the history of college football at the time to complete 2 seasons with a 70% or more completion percentage.
Mhm.
That guy, that guy that we just said all of that about, all those accolades. He did his best prime MJ and carried a sign into the stadium that said Pretenders.
He took that personally,
He did. He did.
literally, just like everything. He took it personally.
Yeah. Um, and if only he would have taken personally the challenge to encourage his defense.
And you know what? I think they had I didn't really look at the defensive roster that they had, but I thought they had a couple guys that were kind of sort of that Teddy Lehman mold, but obviously didn't work out that
No,
way. If you go back
no.
and look at some of the Sony or Nick runs, just guys just falling down and just like lanes that are 15 yards wide.
So I remember the broadcast talked a few times about their inside linebackers and like maybe one of their defensive backs. But let's put it like this. When you search those guys, most of them never made it to the NFL.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, Bob Stoops knew what he was getting into. That's why he
Yeah.
left. But OU won the Big 12 championship, beating TCU, who was at the time number 10, for the second time that season, 41-17. And we got to remember, Clemson's won, seeding wise. Clemson's won, undefeated, won the ACC. This was back before the ACC had a pulse. Oklahoma's too, because Georgia had just gotten the shit kicked out of them by Auburn. 2 weeks later, beat Auburn in Atlanta. So
Hmm.
Georgia's 3. And then because Georgia beat Auburn, they sneak in Alabama to the playoff over a Penn State team that won the Big 12 or Big 10 and beat Ohio State.
Yeah. Oh man,
Over.
that what could have been.
No, that was 2016. Penn State still won. Penn State still won the Big 10 that year, I believe.
I think so. Yeah,
Or was
that's
it a
that
two
never.
loss? No, it
It
was
might
two
have
loss
been.
Ohio State.
I was gonna say, or was it Wisconsin?
Um, sorry guys, we should have looked this up. Um,
Yeah, no, it was Ohio State. They were 11-2.
yeah,
Wisconsin was 12-1.
two loss Ohio State because Ohio State lost to Oklahoma in the shoe. Um, and
Planted
then
the
obviously
flag.
they
Planted
planted
the
a
flag there
flag
too,
and no
man.
one was assaulted or pepper sprayed.
Crazy.
And
Urban
then
Meyer had them under control. Can you believe that?
Urban Meyer having something under control that's not. Never mind, I'm not going. Um, and then we talked about it earlier. That's exactly what I was thinking. I saw that. We
Shocker.
talked about it earlier. UCF should have been in the playoff over Alabama, and I will not really die on that hill because I don't have a strong opinion about it. But and
UCF was 12th that year.
that's insane.
10-2 Washington, 10-2 Miami, 10-2 Penn State. Oh my man, Mark Richt. Oh, that year, that was the
That
Miami
was the
year
10
there.
and 0,
Mark
like
Richt.
ranked number 2
Yeah.
for a minute.
Oh my God. What could have been if Miami didn't just do the Miami thing? It could have been a Georgia Miami national championship in Atlanta. Mark Richt versus Kirby. That would have been dope.
That would have been. Allegedly, that's the last time Miami had much of a defense too.
Yeah.
Um, stats probably do not back that up. Just being entirely honest.
Right.
But we got a lot of memorable things just in winning the SEC. And then the old. So you put a lot of this last stuff in here, so I'll let you take over for a minute.
So I mean, the pregame flyover is iconic. I mean, it always is, but just the different, the crimson or whatever,
Oh, I
burgundy,
mean,
whatever.
there's a reason that one still goes around and like viral every year.
Yeah. I've wanted for the longest time, like whenever I see the framed picture of the flyover, like I want to buy it, but I have nowhere to put it. I would love to have it framed and put somewhere. Um, Maybe someday. Um, but this is the first ever matchup between Oklahoma and Georgia, which is pretty wild. And as conference, foes now. Maybe they'll meet in 2026. Maybe we'll see.
What
But
do you want to see happen first? Georgia and Oklahoma play a conference game, or Georgia go to College Station?
I never want them to go to College Station. I want this to continue forever. I want them to play in Norman before they play in College Station. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm here for you. I'm here for that.
Yeah. Um, you put this part, but Georgia was actually a 1.5 point favorite going into this game with the over under set at 60.
And first off, there's no reason Georgia should have been the favorite going into this game.
Correct. Right.
Like Georgia had at the time, Georgia's fullback was one of the most important players on the team in
Can you
2017.
imagine? Can you imagine today?
And you have the Heisman winner with a list of receivers that are still in the NFL.
Like all pro adjacent Pro Bowl guys.
Like
Still.
legit Pro Bowl, not like
Seventh
voted
alternate.
Pro Bowl, not playing in the game.
Like Mitch Trubisky Pro Bowl guys. No.
Okay,
not
whoa,
that.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's not insult anybody.
Mitch did make a Pro Bowl. But Georgia coaches wise, just going down memory lane a little bit. Obviously, we talked about Kirby being in year two. Offensive coordinator, who could forget Jim Chaney in his second year. Did pretty good job. Wouldn't mind him coming back, but that's another story.
Yeah, he did a lot better of a job than this next guy.
Yeah. Co-OC James Coley.
It's wild that he was co-OC.
What does James Coley have on Kirby that keeps bringing him back? I know he's a great recruiter. We've talked about that.
Man,
But
he's
what
either got to
skeletons
be
does he
the
need to know?
best recruiter in the world,
Mhm.
or he got some dirt.
Yeah. He knows where the bodies are. Uh, DC Mel Tucker, Title IX legend, feminist icon. Cortez Hankinen, another feminist icon.
I don't think there were any charges in Cortez's case, though.
No, this kind of reminds me in one of the videos they talked about, not one of the videos, one of the things during the game. This will come back to Cortez Hankton, and I won't explain the connection, but you guys will get it. They talked about how the 1942 Rose Bowl game, how Georgia took 4 days by train to get to Pasadena. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
4 days by train. That's a long ride.
Cortez would have loved that.
That is a long ride.
Go upstairs. Dale McGee, running back coach, Syracuse head coach currently. Awesome. Miss him.
One of the GOAT
Sam
running
Pittman.
back coaches.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Sam Pittman, offensive line coach. We're still missing him.
Facts.
Sorry. And then Glenn Schumann, inside linebackers coach. He's been on the staff. I think he's been on the staff since day one of Kirby's tenure, right?
He was one of the first coaches Kirby hired.
Mm-hmm. Shane Beamer, tight end coach for the 1 year that he was here. Then I think he went to Oklahoma after this, and then he became head coach at South Carolina. And then Scott Sinclair, strength coach, big get when Kirby came over that everybody was excited about, that he's off doing his own thing now. But
Yes.
yeah, dude, that coaching staff was stacked.
It was. And we're actually going to get to it in a little bit, but the third Stoops brother was the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma.
Really?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mike, I think his name was. I put it in
No,
here somewhere.
Ma- yeah, say Bob. Bob was the old coach.
Yep.
Yeah, Mike sounds right. Yeah.
I put it in here somewhere, I promise. Um, but yeah, third Stoops brother. Kind of wild.
Hmm.
But we already mentioned it a minute ago, but the Oklahoma players for this game, obviously we got Baker Mayfield. Mike, it was Mike Stoops. The
There we
third
go.
Stoops
Okay.
brother was the defense coordinator. Still sucked. Just throwing that out there. But the Oklahoma offense is full of NFL guys. Obviously Baker Mayfield, but they had Kyler Murray at backup. I think the jury may still be out on if Kyler Murray is actually an NFL quarterback.
I was
But
looking at it before. You know how like the Bears haven't thrown for 4,000 yards. Kyler Murray hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards. We know he's been
so you're saying
hurt, and
he's
Call of
coming
Duty.
up a little short.
Some would say.
If the Cardinals could just pay PlayStation to not put out any games for a full year.
We just got to do Call of Duty in like January because they're not going to either. But
Kyler Murray did play in this game. Hollywood Brown, Marquise Hollywood Brown, whatever you want to say. CeeDee Lamb, Mark Andrews, and on the offensive line they had Creed Humphreys and Orlando Brown.
Stacked.
I mean,
Stacked.
seven guys from that offense are still in the NFL.
That's wild.
Yeah. But, from where we think about this game, how many passing yards, we think about this game, obviously it's highest scoring Rose Bowl of all time. Way up there, double overtime. How many passing yards do you think Baker had in this game?
Probably, shoot. I'm going to go on the lower end. I'm going to say he had like 275.
287.
Yeah. Price is right. I win.
Yeah, but when you think about this game scoring 48 points, you're like, man, he definitely put up like 4 bills.
The running back had some big plays for them too. Like he had huge runs. Like
yeah,
there was a chunk play after chunk play.
I mean, how many rushing yards, including sack yards, do you think Baker had?
He probably only had like 20.
1.
Really? Oh yeah, sack yards is just Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you get sacked 6 times in a game, it's not going to go pretty well for your rushing numbers.
Right.
I will say, even though Georgia had all those guys in the defensive front, in the first half, that Oklahoma offensive line was just demolishing Georgia's defensive front 7. Nobody, there's one play in particular, it was a touchdown run of where Roquan was just getting bodied.
He got trucked. He had a horrible first half.
He did. And then in the second half of the game, they actually talk about it. Roquan Smith just took out a whole first half of frustration on the running back.
Yeah.
Because in today's college football, that's probably a flag. Not even for targeting. Yeah. They're going to throw the flag and try and figure out why afterwards.
It's like unnecessary roughness.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Like, dude, you ain't got to do all that. Come on now.
Yeah.
But I mean, even Lorenzo and Davin were pretty much non-existent. Roquan was bullied all over the place. It seems like the defense was playing scared in the first half.
Yeah.
We on the show have said that before, except for this time they came back and won the game.
Yeah.
Instead of coming back and throwing an interception in the end zone late. But the Georgia offense was insane that day. Jake Fromm, true freshman. And then I think you wanted to go through the roster. I just have one note on Jake Fromm.
Yeah.
He had an insane run that year.
Yeah.
he technically played better in 2018, but I think a lot of people could have played quarterback for Georgia pretty well that day in the Rose Bowl. One,
Hmm.
you're going against Oklahoma's defense, notably bad.
Yeah.
And the big thing is, you had Nick and Sony in the backfield. And just for example, if you take out Sony's 75-yard rushing touchdown, he still had over 100 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns.
Hmm.
He ended the day with over 200 total yards. But, I mean, the offensive line was playing out of its mind. Nick and Sony were all over the place. And one thing you notice going into this game, or watching this game, is how many times Nick or Sony will reach over and tap Jake on the shoulder and point out
Yeah.
coverages or point out, like, hey, this guy's blitzing. And then Jake will make the adjustment. But
Hmm.
without Nick or Sony there, it probably would have been a wildly different game, just talking about pass protection.
Yeah.
So while Jake had an insane year in 2017 to be a true freshman, I think a lot of people could have done it that day.
Yeah. If you have like two, bona fide superstar running backs kind of helping you with that stuff as a freshman, like that's definitely helpful for any quarterback, but especially as a true freshman.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm just gonna read this is the part where I'm just gonna read off guys just to reminisce. Like it's just awesome. Just like I pulled it up and I went down a rabbit hole, but I wasn't gonna go like super deep. But obviously, yeah, Mecole Harmon. We'll talk about him later. Terry Godwin, Javon Wims, who doesn't get enough credit for just how pivotal he was this entire season and in this game.
So
Uh,
I'm pulling it up.
yeah, dude, he had so your third running back, DeAndre Swift, as a true freshman, had that incredible run, iconic run in the SEC championship as well. Kirby, running him down as well. Riley Ridley, huge year. Elijah Holyfield was on this team. He's a freshman or sophomore. He didn't really play all that much. Isaac Nada, uh, and then our boy number 22, Stetson Bennett, made the trip
Not
out
only did
there.
he make the trip, but this is where everybody heard Stetson's name
Yeah.
because he was scout team Baker Mayfield, and everybody was like, "Who the
Hmm.
hell is this guy?"
Yeah. Um, and then just like on the oh yeah, Christian Payne. That's who the fullback was, right?
Frank Sinkwich's grandson was a backup fullback.
He was, yeah. Frank Sinkwich the fourth,
Yeah,
true freshman.
yeah.
Um, Defensive wise, again, just going down the Richard LeCount, which I think was like the first like big time recruit that Kirby got, and I was super excited for him.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah. Keep going. I lost my train of thought.
Roquan, obviously, junior year, Julian Rochester, who I think he was on that 2021 national championship team, right? Like
I believe
medical
so.
red shirt, something like that.
Yeah,
I think
I
he was.
believe so. I'll look it up.
Um, Obviously Lorenzo Carter we talked about. DeAndre Walker, Davin Bellamy we talked about. DeAndre Baker, J.R. Reed again doesn't get enough credit for anything.
What's wild,
For
J.R. Reed, and this is something that I'm going to talk about every time J.R. Reed gets brought up. J.R. Reed was a he was a guy that Kirby threw a scholarship at to get his cousin to
Yeah.
come to Georgia.
Hmm.
His cousin ended up transferring to Tennessee, getting buried on the depth chart, and transferring again, while J.R. Reed was one of the best safeties that Georgia's had under Kirby Smart. And look, guys, I know all the other guys that have played here. J.R. Reed was a difference maker every play he was on the field.
Absolutely. Dominic Sanders was there as well. Monty Rice is a freshman. Robert Beal was a freshman. Eric Stokes is a freshman. I mean, golly. I mean, just again, the stack Trent Thompson.
Yep. And Julian
Just, I mean,
Rochester
names on
was
names.
on that 2021 title team.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, I thought so. Ben
He
Cleveland.
avenged the
Sorry.
game this season by the Natty this season by getting a TFL in the 2021 Natty.
Yeah. No, that's all I had though for the roster. Just name guys naming dudes.
Yeah. But one thing I do want to talk about for this defense, specifically Lorenzo Carter. In 2017, y'all know if you listen to the show for any length of time, the star position I think is the most pivotal on the defense. It's a corner or safety or he doesn't really have a spot. He is essentially the nickel back, but instead of just being a fifth defensive back, he is responsible for tight ends, running backs out of the backfield, and help stopping the run, all in one player.
Mm-hmm.
Lorenzo Carter was a star defender in 2017. 6'6", outside linebacker. Lorenzo Carter was the star defender in 2017.
That's pretty wild.
He was responsible for covering Mark Andrews. Yes. The Mark Andrews that Lamar Jackson can't seem to win a playoff game without him going off.
Yeah.
That Mark Andrews. He had 4 catches for 52 yards with a long of 29. And did you know Lorenzo Carter was not on the field for his 29-yard catch?
Shut down slot corner.
Down slot corner Lorenzo Carter, some are saying.
Yeah.
But, and going into this game, this was only a few weeks after Natrez Patrick was suspended. If you remember, Natrez Patrick was arrested for possession of weed. Leaving Athens.
Oh my God.
Do what?
The humanity. I can't believe it.
Right.
Animal.
He was arrested on 3/16, headed from Athens to Atlanta for a party after the SEC title game.
Yeah.
Kelsey and I rode past him being arrested that night on our way back home.
No.
Didn't know it was him. We're riding down the road. We see a Charger on the side of the road with this giant getting shoved in the back of the police car as, we'd been downtown since the game had ended. We're headed home and we're like, what's going on here? Because 3/16 in the middle of the night at the time, if there's somebody pulled over, you see the blue lights for 2 miles in either direction.
Right.
So we're slowed down, dude. We're like going 30 by the time we get to this cop car, and then we just see a giant getting shoved in the back, and it's like, I got a bad feeling about that for whatever reason.
Not the Charger. Not the Charger.
You already know.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a Georgia fan or a college football fan that after this game was not buying all of the stock in David Marshall and Tyler Clark.
Right. Huge.
2 guys that in the second half of this game, Georgia probably loses this game without the second half these guys had.
Mm-hmm.
Against future NFL players.
Yep.
And these guys never really did anything else in their career. Not to be hateful, but every year, I got excited for David Marshall and Tyler Clark.
Yeah.
And every year I got disappointed. Because I was convinced. I was like, dude, these 2 guys, what they did to Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield just won the Heisman. He's dual threat. Their offensive line's full of NFL guys. And they dominated in the second half. And then literally nothing.
Right.
Disappointing. I hope that doesn't offend you guys if David Marshall and Tyler Clark hear this.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully you don't get offended by the fact that I say you didn't really do anything the rest of your career. But, man, all of Dog Nation was so excited for so many years after this.
Yeah.
And the hype never paid off. Big sad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Key plays. Do you want to go through a few of these and then we'll swap off?
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so I kind of ignored the first quarter or so of this, but after the CD Lamb, there's like the double reverse pass that he had that looked like he was going to run into the end zone, and then he just kind of flipped it to Baker for the touchdown and go up 31-14. Lincoln Riley elected to go for a squib kick to try to kill the clock. I think there was like 4 seconds left or something like that.
Yeah,
there wasn't much time left. Ended up just batting it down, falling on it, and it was just enough time to get Rodrigo Blankenship out there for a 55-yard field goal after he had missed, I think, like a 48-yard field goal a little bit earlier.
Do you remember the guy that knocked it down and caught it?
Mm-mm.
Future Mr. Irrelevant. Monty Rice. No, Monty Rice wasn't Mr. Irrelevant.
No, yeah, he was he was.
No, he played for the Giants for a while. Who was Mr. Irrelevant? It was a linebacker. He wore 30 something.
Was it Malik Carey? No.
No, 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 no. All right, keep going. I'm
Uh,
gonna look this up. I feel real dumb now.
but yeah, Hot Rod was able to avenge the field goal that he missed and hit a Rose Bowl record 55-yard field goal to end the half with OU leading 31-17. So to make it to go from a two score or go from a 3-score game to a 2-score game after that kind of heartbreaking trick play touchdown that Oklahoma had was a huge win and momentum builder for Georgia going into the second half. Miko had a few huge returns in this game, set up some scoring drives. And I think I talked about this later, but I can say it now. He he's exactly what I think we all thought that Arian Smith would have been or should have been, and just never ended up panning out. Like Miko was so much fun. Like I don't think he gets enough credit either for his time in Athens.
No, I don't either. Especially Miko had an insane 2018 season, including the game against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
But because the defense fell short in 2018, that entire year just gets forgotten about.
Yeah. But he had that huge touchdown catch in the national championship game that year too. Like
Yeah.
huge. Like just broke it open. Like it felt like at that point they're going to win. But not to go down that road. We're not going to talk about that game. This is the last game of the year as far as I'm concerned. First play of the second half after that 55-yard field goal by Hot Rod. Nick Chubb broke off a 50-yard touchdown to cut the lead to 7. Oklahoma's defense looked afraid of tackling Nick and Sony in the second half. Multiple big plays where one guy avoided making the hit and just kind of fell down, made a business decision, and just like I talked about earlier, having these like 15-yard gaps, lanes for these guys to run through, just like a lot, which is wild.
Tay Crowder.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Mr. Relevant to the Giants. It started for them for a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. He had it. Yeah. He made himself a little decent career in the NFL.
He did after he got to Georgia as a running back of all positions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I forgot where we were at. But yeah, sometime in the second half. I think it was in the second half, and it kind of felt like things changed in Georgia's favor a little bit. But I think it was Julian Rochester that kind of like flew in when Baker Mayfield went down and like kneed him like square in the ribs.
Was that the play where he got sacked by like 4 guys at the same time and one guy flew in at the last second?
Yeah, like just flying knee.
Yeah.
And just like, I mean, Baker looked like he was just off pretty much the rest of the game after that hit, which,
all of us would be.
Sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they said anything during the broadcast how it was dirty because like at the time I was like, oh god, man. I'm so like shocked nothing got called.
Today, that is roughing the passer
penalty
on all 4 players. That is a 60-yard penalty.
Yeah.
It's 2 touchdowns.
It's a death penalty.
Yeah.
On the field. Yeah, but he didn't look right the rest of the game. Georgia ended up taking the lead for the first time with 13:57 left in the fourth quarter after an incredible 4-yard touchdown catch by Javon Wims, which again we talked about earlier. He is not given the credit that I think that he deserves as a key member, key contributor of this like legendary Georgia team.
No, and not only was he insane at Georgia, because with Javon Wims, the back shoulder that Chaney and Fromm love so much, if it was thrown at Javon Wims, he was catching that pass.
Yeah.
That just is what it is. Jake Fromm's first touchdown pass in his career, back shoulder to Javon Wims, where he kind of shook out of a tackle and reached over the goal line. But then, even in the NFL, gets into a fight with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Still to this day, I think if you said something bad about Jake Fromm in front of Javon Wims, you get your ass beat.
I mean, who among us wouldn't want to do that to Chauncey Gardner?
Like 12 months ago, you were defending him as one of the best defensive backs in the NFL.
No, I would never do that. He got hurt. His pecs are made of paper mache. We didn't need him.
But how much do you wish he was on your team when you guys were in the playoffs, considering you had no other defensive backs?
No, it definitely would have been huge to have somebody with a pulse out there. But you know what? I mean, if he was on the team still, you probably don't have Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph back there. So I mean, was there a spot for him? I don't know.
All right. I'll take over for a minute here. So we
All right.
got, with the game tied at 38, Sony Michel fumbled the ball.
Hard to
Oklahoma
stop.
recovers it, scoops and score, 6:52 left. Oklahoma now leads with all the momentum, 45-38.
Dude, I mean, I was so drunk at this point in the game. My heart dropped. I just got quiet, didn't say anything for the next like 15, well, maybe not 15 minutes, but next little while because I thought, here we go.
Yeah.
I was waiting for this to happen, and here we go.
So I we had to catch up on this game and on drinking. So we were in Florida, we were in Orlando, and then left early that morning, drove all the way up to Athens to watch it with our friends at their house. And they had paused the TV right as they were lining up for kickoff, and we got
Mhm.
there like 45 minutes late. So we
Oh,
watched the first half, and we were able to skip through all the commercials, and we caught up like halfway through the third quarter.
mhm.
And we were also catching up on drinking, so I was probably way drunk by this time too.
Yeah, I am just what do we call it? The Mark Richt.
Anxiety syndrome.
Yeah, I mean
MRAS.
that's full, full blast after that Sony fumble. I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. No, it was, and at the time there were a lot of people and a lot of Georgia entities that were talking about how Sony was better than Nick Chubb at the time. He was more reliable. He was more inclined to get that explosive play.
He was
Um,
more versatile at that point, if that makes sense. He was more of a
yeah,
dual threat guy.
yeah,
Even like after this game, I remember like I saw this like in my Facebook memories like the other day. Someone had asked me like, "Oh, which Georgia running back would you rather have?" The Lions take. I'm like, "Oh, I would definitely rather have Sony."
yeah,
Wrong.
yeah. Wrong. Um, but
Although he won 2 Super Bowls, so I don't know.
it's fair.
He wouldn't have done that in Detroit though.
Well, Nick's still with Cleveland, so
Well, he's a free agent. He might finally get somewhere good now. He can get away from the Deshaun Watson stuff.
I just hope he didn't let Deshaun take him to any massage parlors with his injury. Yeah, I'm just. But speaking of Nick Chubb, he did tie it up with 55 seconds left with a 2-yard touchdown run. Um,
Oh, dude, I thought that left too much time. I even scoring that, I was like,
I did
shit,
too.
here we go. Here we go.
I did too. And then you had Oklahoma in those 55 seconds to drive to like Georgia's 40 and stall out. And it's
Yep.
like, oh boy.
Yep.
Oh, what are we doing, guys? What's going on here? And they just
Yeah.
stalled out and said, all right, we'll play for overtime.
Which crazy because like with the offense that you had, just being conservative in that point, I don't get again another Lincoln
Well,
Riley mess up.
yeah, no one is accusing Lincoln Riley of making the best decisions.
No, no.
Um, but first overtime in Rose Bowl history, and we all know what happens. First overtime goes through, just a couple of field goals, and then Oklahoma gets the ball first. They make a big play and then they get stall out.
Oh,
And
Roquan had a huge play, like like to force that fourth down, just absolutely
oh yeah,
stuffed CeeDee Lamb. I think it was CeeDee Lamb.
yeah, they needed to get 4 and he stopped him at like 2.5 or 3.
Yeah, just
Just
effort.
Roquan Smith was committed to stopping CeeDee Lamb or dying in that moment.
Hmm.
Now, if only
Again,
he could get the rest of the
probably
Ravens
today.
defense to commit to that, that'd be great.
Right, right. I mean, probably today. Again, he probably would have been flagged for something. It wasn't targeting, but just you hit him too hard.
Well, he hit him so hard that Roquan's feet, I don't think they ever hit the ground again after he made contact.
Hmm.
And CeeDee Lamb and Roquan went 4 yards backwards.
Yeah. Hmm.
But Lorenzo Carter, for the third time this season, blocks a short field goal.
Hmm.
And one thing about this block field goal specifically and the one in the there was another one this season. I don't remember when it was. But this blocked field goal, one of my favorite things about it is one, hits his hand, perfect spiral.
Yeah.
There were multiple blocked field goals this year that landed in the dead center of the O in Georgia's end zone. I don't know why. It makes me so happy to watch the play because you go back and watch it, it hits in the middle of the O like a bullseye.
Yeah.
And I love
Beautiful.
it. Then we get Georgia's side of overtime. All they got to do is kick field goal, right? 3 points, super easy. You got Hot Rod. He just
Yeah.
kicked the longest field goal in the history of the Rose Bowl.
hmm
Too easy. Just kick it. Just kick it. You're fine. You're
Yeah,
fine.
just set up. Just get right in the center, in the middle of the field. Yeah, just wherever he
Oh,
wants that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you get knocked backwards 6 yards on your first play. It might not be six. It's a couple.
Mhm.
You get knocked back
Yeah.
a few yards on your first play. Probably just run it down the middle a couple times. No, we know what happens.
Wild dog.
Wild dog. But did you know that they wanted Nick to run that play? And he said, no, you got to give it to Sony. He needs this one. And then,
You let him avenge that mistake.
yeah, let him make up for that mistake. Jake Fromm lays down the most important block of his entire career. More important than any block he could have made in the Little League World Series.
Yeah, what was the over under going into the game? How many times they mentioned that? Because it had to be at least a dozen. I know it was even more in the national championship.
I think they actually hit the under in this because of how good of a game it was.
Yeah, no, that's probably true.
Yeah. Um, but, just runs it on that left side behind Jake Fromm. And one thing you don't think of when you think back on this play, like if you watch the video, you know it. But when you're thinking about it, you don't realize it was a 27-yard run.
Yeah. hmm
Like that's not it's not like that was the 5 or 10 that it is in your head. That was 27 yards.
hmm
Um, but I mean, you put it in here. Both of those guys have arguments for Mount Rushmore of Georgia plays ever, and
hmm
I think they're shoe-ins for Mount Rushmore plays during Kirby Smart's tenure.
For sure. And they're like what within like what 4 plays of each other?
Yeah, I think 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you put the records in here. You did the research, so you got this one.
Yeah, so this was, I think the record still stands, but 102 points scored, broke the record of 101 points from the previous year's Rose Bowl between USC and Penn State, which that was a good
Also, a
game.
great one to go back and watch.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, Rose Bowls are just great. Like them, and this and the Pop-Tart Bowl. I mean, you can pretty much pick any one and just go back and be like, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of Alamo Bowls too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Um, Georgia had the largest comeback, which is 17 points in Rose Bowl history. I believe that still stands as well. And we did talk about Hot Rod's 55-yard field goal to end the first half is the longest field goal in Rose Bowl history. And somehow Hot Rod is not on an NFL roster or even a UFL roster.
Have you seen his social media recently?
Does he like well, no, not recently, no.
So this season, he started like if a kicker missed a kick to win a game,
hmm
he tags the team on his social media and recreates the kick. Just
Hey, I mean, whatever you got to do, man.
but
Whatever you got to do.
he's going through and he's like, oh, here's every field goal I've made in my career. And then he's like, I'm gonna make some 60-yarders now.
Yeah. There's no, I mean, really, there's no, there, with how bad some of the kicking was last year in the NFL, there's no reason why Hot Rod should not be on a team.
Lenore Sellers wearing rec specs is already getting some NFL hype,
hmm
and y'all don't have Hot Rod on a roster. Come on now. Is it because he raised guide dogs? Is that what it is? You guys just hate
Did he?
blind people.
Oh my, yeah.
He did raise guide dogs when he was at Georgia.
Just great human.
He is,
Yeah.
and the NFL hates him. He's blackballed because they want Greg Hardy types.
They do.
If you ain't ever punched somebody in an elevator, go.
Yeah, proof.
But I mean, do you have any final thoughts on this game?
Man, so when we had DirecTV, I had this saved on on my DVR. Like I would like that was always like at the bottom, like the first thing I recorded. And like I think I went back. I haven't watched this game in a little while, up until like yesterday or whatever when I rewatched it. But I mean, I've probably seen this game like 100 times. I love this game. This is like certainly top three Rose Bowls of all time, if not. Well, I think we kind of talked about this before too, but I mean, it's one of the best Rose Bowls ever, and games ever for that matter.
As far as Rose Bowls go, I think it depends on how much you put into the context of the game. Because
Like the
in
Texas USC
my,
game was a national championship game. Like that game
it,
was insane.
it was a national championship game. But if you watch it in the modern context of college football, Vince Young's kind of not that good. Just
That's the reason why he flamed out in the NFL.
Vince Young and Marcel Reed, put them in each other's uniform and you couldn't tell the different player. Because
Right.
if they're not running the football, they're not doing positive things with the football.
Yeah.
Just gonna be honest there. But if you're talking about just the game of it, I say this one, the 2016 game, and then that one.
hmm I mean, I would again just being a homer a little bit. I mean, I would throw the 2020. Well, I guess it's 2024 game between Michigan and Alabama was pretty good too. A lot of drama.
Eh,
Yeah,
if you just like running the football, I guess.
I just like Nick Saban losing. It's nice.
So you're a big
Feel
fan of Shane Gillis.
just I mean, Nick was so mad at him, so mad at him.
And I love how the rest of the cast was like, "No, he's not mad. I promise. He's not mad. He's gonna mess with you too." And then a few months later, apparently they saw each other, and Nick is still not happy.
I would never say that Alabama paid for players.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree with you. This game, top three, doesn't matter the context. Top three Rose Bowl of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of let everybody know that Georgia was for real. Because I remember a lot of people picking Oklahoma. They're like, oh, Georgia's a nice story, but remember what happened when they played Auburn a few weeks ago? Something like that's going to happen again. If the defense couldn't stop Auburn, how are they going to stop Oklahoma?
All of that. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to stop Oklahoma. You just have to score more.
Yeah. Which they did.
Yeah. But
I mean, good thing Oklahoma didn't have Kerryon Johnson, a healthy Kerryon Johnson.
yeah, I will say, if they would have played the SEC title game in a not flat AstroTurf field, I think Kerryon would have done a lot better. But the fact that Georgia was able to intentionally hit his shoulder into a flat AstroTurf surface, when essentially it's just plywood under the AstroTurf, that couldn't feel good in a separated shoulder.
No.
But that is going to do it for this episode of the Nothing Finder podcast. To hell with everyone. 2017 Rose Bowl. I know it's technically the 2018 game. Probably should have said this at the top. One thing about the college football playoff and the New Year's Six that pisses me off every year. If it's the 2017 season, it's not the 2018 Rose Bowl. I don't care when the game is.
Right.
If it's 2017
sometimes
season,
you can have two like bowl games in the same year, like Orange Bowls. Like that happens pretty frequently. Like it's confusing.
Yeah. If it's for the 2017 season, it's the 2017 Rose Bowl. This year, I know the national championship game was the third week of January. I don't care. It is the 2024 national championship game. Take that 25 patch off. It's stupid.
It really is.
But
that's another thing you can talk about when you're fixing college football.
You know what? We'll add it in there. That'll probably go into the scheduling episode.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it. Don't forget to vote for us on Connect Savannah's Best of Savannah. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Share it with your friends. Follow us on all the social medias, including YouTube, if you want us to go live there. And as always, guys, remember there's nothing finer in the land
And a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.